Alright, hello, I'm here today to talk to you all about implied consent. First of all, I'd like to state that my sources for this have been from Michael Hlemmer's The Problem of Political Authority, pages 20 through 35. So, implied consent. What is the definition of implied consent? Implied consent is consent that one indicates through conduct without actually stating an agreement. So we're going to talk about how implied consent works overall with the larger social contract theory of political theory. So there are four types of implied consent. The first type is passive consent. This is consent simply by refraining to oppose to something. So if we're in a board meeting and the chair of the board meeting states at the end of the meeting that the next meeting will be held tomorrow at 6 o'clock, and then proceeds to ask if there are any objections. If no one says anything, then everyone in the room is implicitly, passively consenting to attend that meeting the next day. Our second type of implied consent is consent through acceptance of benefits. This simply means that by committing to benefits, you are committing to the attached demands that come with them. An example of this is going into a restaurant and ordering food. If you go into a restaurant and order a hamburger, and then when the hamburger is brought out to you, the waiter asks you to pay for it, and you state that you had never had any intention of paying for that burger, well, the restaurant can claim that by having prices on the menu, and it is also widely known that restaurants charge for their food, by ordering that burger, you were implicitly consenting to pay for that burger that you ordered in the restaurant. Our third type of implied consent is consent through presence. This simply means that by being in a certain spot, you are committing to a certain type of action by being there. So an example of this would be by throwing a party, and the individual that's throwing the party states that everyone that stays at the party from this point on is going to help clean up at the end. So whoever stays through the rest of the party has implicitly consented that they will help that individual clean up at the end of the party. Our fourth and last type of implied consent is consent through participation. Humor likes to use the example of one individual walking into class. Let's say your professor throws a hat in front of everybody and says that everybody who throws their name into the hat will have a drawing at the end of class, and whoever's name is drawn, everybody who put their name into the hat besides that individual will owe that one individual $1. So if I put my name in the hat, I am implicitly consenting to pay that individual $1 if their name is drawn. So let's talk about how these four types of consent apply to the social contract theory. So passive implied consent works by simply not explicitly turning down the social contract theory. By not openly turning down the social contract theory, you are implying that you agree to the social contract theory. An exception to this would be perhaps anarchists who have in fact turned down the social contract theory. But by not turning it down, you still maintain that you have implied that you agree to the social contract theory. Alright, through benefits, nearly everyone has accepted some type of benefit from the government. Many individuals have received scholarships from the government. By accepting those scholarships, you are therefore implying that you agree to the government and the social contract theory. One controversial aspect of this is through defense and police. Whether one individual wants to or not, they're still going to be subject to the protection of the police and the military, so there's really no way to opt out of that. Our third type, through presence, the government doesn't require any individuals to live in the state except for criminals, but there really is nowhere for individuals to go to get out of the state. But by living in the state, individuals have agreed to perhaps, or implied that by living there, they're going to follow the rules of the laws and pay their taxes. But individuals, the only place they can go to leave is perhaps the ocean and Antarctica, and those places are simply really irrational places to go live at. So our fourth type of implied consent through participation is simply by participating in the political system. By participating in the political system, you are agreeing to the social contract. But no matter what you do in the political system, if you vote against a law or against a certain candidate and the opposite wins, you're still subjugated to it no matter what. So how does this all work out at the end? Well, Humer states that states do not recognize explicit dissent, therefore implicit consent is really invalid because there's no way to opt out of it anyway. States don't recognize it, so therefore, by not stating anything, individuals are not implicitly consenting because there's no way for them to explicitly dissent. And that is how implied consent relates to the social contract theory.